I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown, a bonus episode, the second bonus episode of the week, and we're not done yet. Last week we talked about my Golden Globe predictions. The day before I talked about the Critics' Choice Awards and what happened and what that means for the Oscars. And it's a big week for awards and everything, so I want to jump in again. And this isn't the end. We're also getting PGA and DGA nominations later this week, so I'm going to be talking about that. And then eventually reacting to the Golden Globes. And the next thing you have it, the Oscar nominations are going to be coming out. So that should be a lot of fun and excited to talk about that. But we're talking about the SAG Awards here. Going to be going through each and every category and essentially break down what to take seriously and what not to. Sometimes we see some surprises that are indicative of what's going to happen at the Oscars, like Monica Barbaro last year for A Complete Unknown, or A Complete Unknown generally being really well liked, and then it ends up getting in for a bunch of categories, including Best Director. But then other years we see sometimes actors like Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place or Adam Sandler in Hustle get in for SAG, and we go, is that a real contender? Is that a real consideration? And then they ultimately don't get nominated at the Oscars. Wanted to talk about kind of what's real, what's not, what to take seriously, what's not, and how this will ultimately impact your Oscar nominations, because that's what we like to do. But without further ado, let's get into things. I'm just going to go category by category, and for each one talk about, like I mentioned, what to take seriously and what not to. What's important, what's not to. So let's talk about the Best Actress category starting off. This was a pretty predictable category, aside from the kind of snub, I'd say, of Renate Redzepi for Sentimental Value. And we can talk about that as a general trend up at top. Sentimental Value potentially could have gotten 5 nominations. It got 0. It really was kind of snubbed in certain parts by this group. Now, it wasn't a huge surprise. Anyone who's been covering the SAG Awards and the Oscars for 10 seasons like I have knows that this branch and this group doesn't really like international films. Even if it's half English, even if it's really more of a broad film that could appeal to American voters, for whatever reason, this group doesn't always appreciate performances spoken in another language, and that was definitely the case here. Renate Redzepi, who has a couple scenes in English, but for the most part is doing the film in another language, wasn't well represented here. So in terms of what to take seriously, what not to take seriously, I think what not to take seriously is Renate Redzepi missing out on Sentimental Value. I don't think this is going to mean that she's going to miss out at the Oscars. We see this every single year, whether it be Fernando Torres for I'm Still Here in this category last year, or Parallel Mothers, Penelope Cruz a few years ago, or other categories like Yalitza Aparicio and Roma not getting nominated at SAG and then getting at the Oscars, or even someone like Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory not getting in here, still getting at the Oscars. We know that the Oscars have really grown their group internationally, so naturally those international voters appreciate more international films. So I wouldn't be freaking out and think that Sentimental Value, I'm going to drop it out of Best Picture or any of the kind of main acting categories. Aside from maybe one of them, I still think, in particular for the Best Actress category, that Renate Redzepi is a very solid nomination, and I would be surprised still if she didn't get in at the Oscars. This doesn't really concern me at all. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And as a matter of fact, because of how things played out, in terms of the overall category, in terms of what we should take seriously, I would say Emma Stone, or really just the Best Actress category in general. But that was another big takeaway for me generally, was seeing how well Begonia performed as a film. Not only getting in here, but also for Jesse Plemons. And that's a movie that I've maybe somewhat doubted in its Best Picture chances, but clearly has the support from actors. So maybe I need to reconsider that and put it in my top 10 for Best Picture. But I mentioned Emma Stone generally because I do think that I had some concerns about the movie generally, but now it's been showing up at all the right places it needs to. Now it has some support, some clear industry support. I think she's going to get in here. So then when I look at my Best Actress category, I think this SAG really helped solidify and make me feel confident in the nominees. For me, at least, the kind of top 2 contenders would be a Rose Byrne, a Jessie Buckley, that have Critics' Prizes, have won things in the past. Then you have, in third place, I would still say Renate Redzepi for Sentimental Value, just because we know Sentimental Value should play very well with international members, in particular for the Academy. And then in the kind of fourth place, I would still put Chase Infinity for One Battle After Another. She's in the Best Picture frontrunner right now. She's has the kind of momentum of the film, and she's been getting nominated everywhere she needs to. And then that 5th spot, you go, okay, assuming Renato Renzoi's in and assuming Chase Infinity's in, it's either going to be Kate Hudson or Emma Stone. And then for me, the reason why I think Emma Stone is a serious thing to take away from here is because I think she's a clear, obvious choice over someone like a Kate Hudson. Because Emma Stone could be in a Best Picture movie in Begonia. She's a 2-time winner in this category. She's very well beloved. And you have a much stronger film in Begonia, and then an actress who's a little bit more liked, particularly within the Academy, who's also gone in for SAG and Critics' Choice and Golden Globes and all the kind of key places that you need to so far. So then at that choice, the choice is pretty simple. And the next thing you know, I feel very confident in the kind of top 5 for Best Actress. I kind of think that's somewhat locked after this performance here, in part because Emma Stone got in here, but just generally also because Jesse Plemons got in for his category for Best Actor. It shows to me that there's an overall sign of support for Begonia, enough to make sure that, okay, Emma Stone is kind of more of a lock. We know that they like her movie as much because of these other nominations, and then we also know generally that they like her, past 2-time Oscar winner, so we know that they like her. Enough kind of a momentum now that you have the strength of her, which was always there, but now you also have the strength of the movie, which kind of combining forces should push her over the edge for a nomination. Then the Best Actor category, some of the kind of main takeaways from me. The most 2 serious ones that I think we should actually take seriously is Ethan Hawke getting in for Blue Moon and Joel Edgerton not getting in for Train Dreams. So on the Ethan Hawke side of things, there's always some concern for me when you have a performance from a movie that's going to get no other nominations like Blue Moon is. It's pretty rare that we have, let's say 2 or 3 acting nominations in a category that is the sole nominee from their film. It does happen, but it's kind of more rare. I'm always more kind of inclined to vote for the movie that has a Best Picture nomination or is really well liked. You have to have a real special performance to not get any other nominations, but still get in for your performance. And what this nomination proves is that it is that kind of a special performance. Not only is Ethan Hawke, a past Oscar nominee, so we know that they like him, he's also been showing up at a lot of places, despite Blue Moon not being the most well-acclaimed movie of all time. His performance is being super well-acclaimed. So I think his nomination here gives me that sense of comfort, that confidence that I will confidently put him in my Oscar predictions, because he's been showing up everywhere, and I've also been kind of trepidatious of going, well, that's critics, that's that kind of thing. What about industry? The industry still likes him despite not loving his movie. That is not enough kind of support, I think, at this point to showcase that this is a real contender in terms of the nomination, and I do think he ultimately gets in. And then the other thing I think you should take seriously is Joel Edgerton not getting in for Train Dreams. And you may go, Connor, was he even expected to get in? Wasn't Wagner Moore the big surprise? I guess in terms of, I think Wagner Moore is definitely getting nominated for an Oscar and he didn't get in for SAG. In that case, then yes, it was a big snub. But if you've been paying attention, you knew that it was very low likelihood that Wagner Moore was not going to get nominated in this category. We knew he was going to miss. He's connected to an international film. International performances don't do very well at SAG. They haven't. So it would be a huge achievement in many ways for him to get nominated. He didn't. That didn't surprise me. The reason why I bring up someone like a Joel Edgerton is because if you have the kind of top 5 actors and then you sub out Wagner Moore for somebody, who are you going to sub out for? That's the big question. It could have either been Jesse Plemons for Begonia. It could have been Dwayne Johnson for The Smashing Machine. It could have been George Clooney for Jay Kelly. So the fact that Joel Edgerton couldn't beat out what I would consider not super strong nominees, weaker nominees, Plemons and Begonia, Dwayne Johnson and Smashing Machine, indicates to me that there's maybe not as much of a strength from Train Dreams as a whole, as a movie, amongst the actors, or else he would have gone in over someone like a Jesse Plemons. In many ways, what it indicates to me is the actors prefer Begonia more than Train Dreams. You could see Felicity Jones, let's say, for supporting actress, get in. She wasn't a real contender, but if they really love Train Dreams, maybe she would get in. Or if they love Train Dreams, Edgerton would have gotten in here. And that may have been actually a smart pick in many ways, because we know that the SAG really loves Netflix. It's a really broad branch, and having availability really matters. So we oftentimes see Netflix movies do very well here. That wasn't the case. So the fact that this group kind of prefers Netflix movies, and Joel Edgerton didn't have that much competition within this category to get nominated, the fact that he didn't get in and instead it was Jesse Plemons for Begonia, I think is a real knock against his chances at the Oscars. I don't think he's going to get in. And in general, the movie Train Dreams appreciation. It may be a movie that still gets in for Best Picture and still has the below-the-line appreciation of a cinematography or score or things like that, and has the screenplay. I think there's going to be some writing appreciation. But the actors aren't really connecting with this movie, so there's a little bit of concern there for its chances at Best Picture. A little bit of a 3D, 4D chess, but it'd be a boring video for me to say, oh yeah, Wagner Moura, who's presuming going to get in, was snubbed here. What a shock, what a key takeaway. It wasn't a key takeaway. We all knew he wasn't going to get in. He didn't get in. The real more interesting thing is the fact that Ethan Hawke solidified himself and that Joel Edgerton kind of didn't get in over some weaker competition like a Jesse Plemons or Begonia. And really the big takeaway from Plemons and Begonia is not that he's going to get nominated for the Oscar. To me, at least, it's that Begonia is a strong film overall, and that will help its chances for Best Picture. Then for Best Supporting Actor, the big kind of takeaway, what to take seriously from this group of nominees, is that Miles Keaton got nominated for Sinners. Now, you may think, oh, is he going to get nominated at the Oscars? I don't necessarily think so. But what it does tell me is that there is no clear number 6 option. For many of us, I think there's a clear top 5. It's the two men from One Battle After Another. It's maybe Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value, but he missed out here. So let's just say the two men will go Paul Mescal for Hamlet and Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein. 4 performances that have gone in everywhere, that are likely Best Picture movies, that are also maybe top 5 Best Picture movies. Those 4 are very solid and safe, I think, to get in. And then we'll call it the quote-unquote 5th spot. It's either a Stellan Skarsgård or maybe it's a Miles Keaton. But I think the fact that Miles Keaton got in here over someone like a Adam Sandler and Jay Kelly, who has been getting in everywhere else, over even his co-star in Delroy Lindo in Sinners, who's been getting some critic support. What it indicates to me is that there is no clear number 6, and that actually the 5 that we have for Best Supporting Actor are very likely to get nominated. And why do I think that? Well, because, very simply, we have the top 5. That was the top 5 that's been getting nominated everywhere. And then we knew that Sentimental Value, Stellan Skarsgård, we knew he was going to miss. Maybe not guaranteed, but we knew that, okay, it's an international movie, they may not like international performances, we'll exclude him out. So then the 5th spot is really the question of what's the 6th spot at the Oscars, what's the 7th spot? And the fact that it didn't go with, let's say, an Adam Sandler for Jay Kelly, it went to kind of a surprise pick in Miles Keaton in Sinners, indicates that there is no clear 6th pick, indicates that it's not necessarily Adam Sandler or Delroy Lindo or Miles Keaton, and that there's going to be some support here and there, but there's not a real kind of clear possible contender that could surprise at the Oscars and could, upset a Jacob Elordi nomination miss or a Stellan Skarsgård nomination miss. So it would be fascinating to see the kind of vote totals, but I would kind of project the way I'm reading this would be that the Best Supporting Actor category, it would be, let's say, 90% of everybody in SAG voted for the top 4, and then that 5th spot, it was like 30%, 31% for Miles Keaton, 30% for Delroy Lindo, 27% for George Clooney, and it would kind of just like all small, slight adjustments, slight contenders. There really is no clear number 6 option. So in many ways, like I talked about for the Best Actress category, I'm a little bit more confident in the Best Supporting Actor category. I've always been confident in it, but the fact that you have Stellan Skarsgård, who I'm actually predicting to win the Golden Globe on Sunday, and not missing here isn't a surprise. I don't think it's a huge deal, and I think that this shows that there's no clear number 6 to surprise him. Maybe it's Miles Keaton, maybe it's Delroy Lindo, maybe it's Adam Sandler. The support has been so diversified that the only other one that's kind of been clear throughout all the other award shows and has the international factor is a Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. So that's why I've included him here. And then for the Best Supporting Actress category, what to take seriously, what not to. What to take seriously, I think, is Amy Madigan. There was still concern, similar with Ethan Hawke and Blue Moon, that maybe she's just going to be a critics thing. Oscars don't really like horror. The industry doesn't really love these types of horror performances. Will she get in? And the fact that she's gone in, despite Weapons not getting in for Ensemble, still actually winning at Critics' Choice Awards, she's been kind of indicating herself as like an industry veteran rather than like a Toni Collette in Hereditary, where that was like a great performance that the critics loved, but then didn't really become an Oscar contender. Weapons, I think, has become somewhat of a contender in that sense, at the very least for an Amy Madigan. Now, I do think she's going to be the sole nominee from her movie, so that always hurts her chances, not only at a win, but also in terms of a nomination. But she's proven it herself enough in terms of getting in at every single place she could, having incredible support from critics in general, that she should likely get a nomination here. I think that was a big takeaway for me. I know a lot of people have been, including her in their top 2 or 3 predictions. I was a little bit more hesitant, but with this nomination, that kind of pushed aside any kind of concern, and I do think she will get nominated. But this category in general, I feel good about the other acting categories. This one I definitely do not. This main thing's super confusing for me. I think generally the Sentimental Value snubs, people are going to be talking about Stellan Skarsgård or Renate Reinsve. The big one for me would be Elle Fanning. The fact that she's in an international movie, yes, sentimental value, but all of her scenes are in English. She's an American actress. You would think if anyone were to get nominated from sentimental value, it would be her in this category. So the fact that she didn't get in, maybe causes some concern for me in terms of her chances at an Oscar. For many, weeks, I've been thinking, okay, it's going to be the two sentimental value girls. And you may have thought the same, just kind of lumping them together. But that may not necessarily be the case. It may just be one or the other. It may just be Inga Ib's daughter Lilius, and that Elle Fanning doesn't have the support from the international branch of the Academy or the American branch. We've seen that they don't have it from SAG, so that Elle Fanning support will have to be the people who love sentimental value international voters. So maybe I'm having a little bit of a concern of Elle Fanning. For the most part, I've thought, okay, it's kind of a package deal or nothing. It's the both sentimental value actresses or nothing. Now I'm maybe thinking, maybe it's just Inga Ib's daughter Lilius, and maybe the fact that Elle Fanning didn't get in here is more concerning to her cause. But then when I think of some of the other contenders, it has me very confused. I think Odessa Zion, it's giving me flashbacks of last year with Monica Barbaro in A Complete Unknown, a Timothée Chalamet movie released during Christmas that just got a SAG nomination and then got in at the Oscars. Now, we won't have the BAFTA nominations to help us before then, but maybe it follows suit. And in the same way, Marie Supreme, in the same way A Complete Unknown gained appreciation, maybe that's Marie Supreme with its late release. Or maybe that's Sinners, the fact that Sinners overperformed here in the same way A Complete Unknown overperformed last year. Maybe based on that, it indicates to us that Wunmi Mosaku is going to get in that final spot. It's really kind of confusing to me. I think, gun to my head right now, I go Amy Madigan, Teyana Taylor, I go Inga Ib's daughter Lilius, and then I go probably Odessa Zion for Marie Supreme, and then maybe Elle Fanning for sentimental value. I've lost some support as well for Ariana Grande. She's been getting in everywhere, but I think it's notable that Wicked for Good, which is a movie that the SAG loved last year, Jonathan Bailey nomination, Ensemble nomination, didn't get in for Cynthia Erivo, didn't get in for Best Ensemble, so definitely the actors don't love Wicked as much as previous years, and ultimately when we talk about the Oscars for the acting categories, it's the acting branch of the Academy that's voting on it, so there is a little bit of concern there where I definitely don't have Cynthia Erivo in for Best Actress, I don't have Amanda Seyfried, but now I have concerns overall in terms of Ariana Grande even in the Best Supporting Actress category. It's going to be a real kind of a knife fight come the Oscars, and I'm excited to see ultimately what happens. And then for the Best Cast, Best Ensemble category, this is the SAG's kind of Best Picture category. I think what to take seriously is Sinners, and we haven't mentioned it too much, but Miles Keaton surprising and getting in, even Wunmi Mosaku getting in as a surprise there. And then the fact that it gets in here for Best Ensemble generally indicates that the actors love Sinners, that this is not just a technical movie, that this has actor support as well. Why is that important? Well, because it indicates to us that Sinners is now a real contender for Best Picture. I think for a lot of people, it's One Battle After Another or Sinners. For me, I would throw Hamnet in there. I still think that's going to be a beloved movie. But what it does indicate to me that Sinners could very easily win the Best Cast Ensemble prize here. I'm not necessarily saying it's a guarantee, but I think that is going to be the assumption for a lot of people. Now, on the one hand, you go Teyana Taylor and the two supporting actors from One Battle and Leonardo DiCaprio got in. Sinners, overperformed and got in for Miles Keaton or Wunmi Mosaku, but still, One Battle After Another still did very well. So I still think it would be the frontrunner to win for Best Ensemble. That being said, in terms of actors on screen acting together, that may be Sinners, that may be the frontrunner. And then if it does win in this category, then it becomes less of a One Battle After Another is winning everything. It's steamrolled, and now maybe Sinners can surprise and pull off the upset on the Oscars. It will be really interesting to see, both in terms of Oscar nominations and then also in terms of the wins for SAG. That's the kind of big standout here. And then what not to take seriously, I think, would be Frankenstein. Some people were surprised by this, but if you think about it, what's the alternative? Sentimental Value was an international movie. We knew it was going to miss. And then what else would it have been? Weapons? J. Kelly? Wake Up Dead Man? These are movies that are not really competing at all for Best Picture, versus Frankenstein, which has been a top 5, top 6 Best Picture contender for months now at this point. And if you haven't thought of it as a top 5, top 6 Best Picture contender, you haven't been paying attention. So Frankenstein getting in just, I guess, indicates that it's a strong Best Picture contender, which we already knew. big takeaways, big kind of overall summary of the video. I think Sinners overperforming here is a real strong enough sign of support for not necessarily its acting chances, but it's just general appreciation as a film. It gives us that understanding that it has a lot of appreciation from the actors, and we know it's going to get a lot of technical nominations, so it may have that widespread support of a potential Best Picture win. And then also, I think this clarified many things for me. I'm confident in my Best Supporting Actor nominees. I'm confident in my Best Actress nominees. It may change. We'll see, but that's what I'm going with right now. But Supporting Actress, it really kind of threw a wrench into things. I'm really unsure of what's going to happen now, and I'm going to have some real tough conversations and some tough analysis here when I'm making my predictions. But stay tuned for later this week. This is the end of this episode, but on Friday, I believe, I'm going to be talking about the PGA and DGA award nominations, and then we're going to be reacting to the Golden Globes on Monday, and then a week from then, I'm going to be releasing my Oscar nominations predictions. So lots of videos, lots of content. We're in the thick of things, so I appreciate you coming along and enjoying the ride, but that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.